The evening shadows stretched long and thin over Willow Ridge's quiet Main Street as 8-year-old Emily Carter clutched her small grocery bag with both hands. The rhythmic sound of her sneakers scuffing the sidewalk, accompanied by the steady panting of her loyal German shepherd, Duke, was all that broke the silence of the sleepy neighborhood. Emily had made this walk many times before, but tonight something felt different. The calm was abruptly shattered by the distant growl of motorcycle engines. She froze, her heart skipping a beat as the rumble grew louder. Duke stiffened beside her, his ears pricked, his dark eyes scanning the street. Before Emily could react, 5 motorcycles thundered around the corner. The riders, large men dressed in black leather jackets adorned with silver skull patches, spread out like wolves encircling prey. The leader, a burly man with a deep scar slicing through his beard-stubbled cheek, slowed his bike as his gaze fixed on her. Well, he drawled, his voice low and dangerous. What do we have here? Emily instinctively tightened her grip on the grocery bag and inched closer to Duke, whose body lowered in front of her, his muscles coiled with readiness. The gang, known around town as the Iron Fangs, had been terrorizing Willow Ridge for months. They had vandalized stores, intimidated families, and spread fear wherever they went. But until tonight, they had never targeted a child. The men didn't know, however, that Duke was no ordinary family dog. As the lead biker motioned for his crew to surround them, Duke's teeth bared in a silent snarl. He wasn't just protecting Emily out of instinct. This was the calculated precision of a retired K-9 officer trained for situations exactly like this one. What happened next would change Willow Ridge forever. Emily Carter was different from the other children in town. Diagnosed with autism at a young age, she often struggled with the noises and sensations that seemed to slide off others unnoticed. Yet, in her world of heightened perception, she noticed things most people missed. Her light brown hair, usually tied into 2 lopsided ponytails, framed a pale face and intense green eyes that saw beyond the surface of things. She spoke rarely, but when she did, her words carried weight. And those social situations often overwhelmed her. She formed deep, unshakable bonds with a few people and one dog who understood her. None was stronger than the bond she shared with Duke. Duke wasn't always Emily's shadow. Before he became part of the Carter family, he had served as one of the most skilled K-9 officers in the state. At 85 pounds of muscle and intelligence, his black and tan coat was well known among law enforcement circles. Duke had worked alongside Officer Benjamin Tate, renowned for narcotics detection and suspect apprehension. Together, they had earned commendations and the admiration of their peers. But 3 years ago, during a dangerous warehouse raid, everything changed. Our men had ambushed Tate's unit. Officer Tate took a fatal bullet while shoving a rookie partner out of the line of fire. Duke had stayed by his handler's side, protecting his body through a hail of bullets, even after sustaining a serious wound to his shoulder. After Tate's death, Duke's behavior became unpredictable. Once reliable, he now reacted with aggression to certain stimuli, making him unfit for duty. Declared dangerous and slated for euthanasia, Duke's fate seemed sealed. That was until Emily came along. Willow Ridge had once been an idyllic small town, a place where neighbors greeted each other on porches and children played until sunset. Nestled in the foothills, its cobbled streets and white clock tower made it seem like something out of a storybook. But as jobs dried up and crime seeped in, things changed. Desperation led to addiction, and addiction gave rise to crime. The Iron Fangs took root on the outskirts, preying on struggling businesses and vulnerable youth. Even the police department, led by Emily's father, Officer Nathan Carter, found itself overwhelmed. Nathan, a man with tired gray eyes and calloused hands, had worked tirelessly to keep Willow Ridge safe. His initiatives aimed at steering kids away from gangs were yielding results, but for every teen he saved, it seemed 2 more fell under the gang's influence. Nathan had been reluctant to bring Duke home. His wife, Megan, worried about having a potentially dangerous dog near Emily. But when they first visited the K-9 facility, something extraordinary happened. While Nathan was distracted filling out paperwork, Emily wandered over to Duke's kennel. The dog, known for snapping at handlers, sat quietly, his gaze fixed on her. "He's sad," Emily said softly. "He thinks it's his fault his partner died." No one had told Emily about Officer Tate. Nathan remembered staring at her in disbelief as Duke slowly approached the gate, pressing his nose against her hand. It was the beginning of something miraculous. Within months of bringing Duke home, his demeanor softened. With Emily, he was gentle and attentive. He became her constant companion, helping her navigate a world that was often too loud and overwhelming. On the morning of that fateful day, Nathan and Megan argued about letting Emily walk to the corner store alone. Megan had hesitated, but Nathan insisted. She was 8 years old. She needed independence. Besides, Duke would be with her. "She has to learn," Nathan had said, handing Emily a safety whistle. "And Duke won't let her out of his sight." From the porch, they watched Emily walk down Maple Lane, her small hand resting on Duke's back. It wasn't until Nathan's phone buzzed with a text from Megan, "Emily isn't home yet," that the dread he had been trying to ignore turned into panic. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, the Iron Fangs were preparing for a drug shipment. Their leader, Victor Scars Malone, leaned against his Harley, barking orders at his crew. At 43, Victor was a man shaped by violence and betrayal. Once a cop, he had been exposed as corrupt and dismissed, largely due to testimony from his former partner, Nathan Carter. When Victor spotted Emily and Duke walking alone, his twisted mind saw opportunity. "That's Carter's kid," he sneered. "Let's have a word." The ambush was swift. Emily, sensing the vibrations of the engines before she heard them, froze. Duke positioned himself firmly in front of her as the motorcycles boxed them in. Victor killed his engine and dismounted, approaching slowly. "Where you headed, little girl?" he asked. Duke growled, his stance shifting into that of a professional K-9 on duty. Emily was overwhelmed. The noise, the fumes, the leather and chrome, it was too much. But then she remembered her father's voice in her head. Danger. "Command, Duke." "Guard," she whispered. Duke lunged. His teeth clamped down on the forearm of the nearest biker, stopping him in his tracks. Chaos erupted. Victor reached for his pistol, but before he could draw, Duke released his first target and pivoted to face the greater threat. Victor recognized the precision and control. "He's a police dog," he growled. "That's no pet." Meanwhile, Nathan jumped into his cruiser, racing along the route Emily had taken. His heart nearly stopped when he spotted the circle of bikers. Without thinking, he skidded to a halt, leaping from the car with his weapon drawn. "Drop it, Victor!" Nathan shouted. Victor hesitated, but his finger was tightening on the trigger. Duke leapt again, knocking the gang leader backward. Shots rang out, but they missed their mark. Nathan closed the distance and tackled Victor to the ground, handcuffing him as backup sirens wailed in the distance. The aftermath was a blur. Emily clung to Duke, who had taken a knife wound in the scuffle but refused to leave her side. At the hospital, while Duke underwent emergency surgery, Emily waited without complaint, sitting silently beside the operating room doors. Hours passed before DR. Hannah Lowell emerged, removing her surgical mask. "He's stable," she announced. "He's going to make it." Emily didn't cry, but she pressed her face into Duke's fur when they were finally reunited in the recovery room. Nathan watched them from the doorway, knowing they had both saved each other. In the weeks that followed, Victor and the Iron Fangs were dismantled. Investigations revealed the full extent of Victor's corruption. Nathan's efforts to clean up Willow Ridge finally gained traction. The town's faith in law enforcement began to return. At home, Duke continued his recovery. Even if he would never chase down criminals again, he was exactly where he belonged, by Emily's side. On warm afternoons, they sat together on the porch. Emily's hand always rested on Duke's broad back. Sometimes they sat in silence. Sometimes she read aloud from her favorite books. And every once in a while, Duke's tail thumped against the wooden planks as if he understood every word. Nathan watched them from the window, his heart full. In Duke's eyes, he saw not just a dog, but a protector, a hero, and above all, family. And in Emily's quiet strength, he saw a courage that could weather any storm. Because sometimes heroes don't wear badges. Sometimes they walk on four legs, carrying scars and stories we may never fully understand. But we love them all the same.